Welcome everyone to Krishna in Vrindavan. This is episode 25 already, and we're going to continue. We're going to finish chapter 29, which is Krishna and the Gopis meet, and then we're going to go on to the Gopis search for Krishna, and hopefully we'll get to the Gopis songs of separation. There's a lot of material here to cover, so I'm worried that it will take too much time, but let's see how it goes. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Pahimam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai. So we were reading about how Krishna played his flute and the gopis came running. And when they got there, Krishna was just kind of like, what brings you young ladies to the forest at night? This is a dangerous place. You should go home. You know, you've got your husbands there. You should be serving them. And some of you have babies that you need to feed. And, you know, you don't want to put them in anxiety and you need to be responsible. And, you know, you should just go home. And then also he speaks this verse, which was the same verse that he spoke to the Brahmins' wives who came to see him. He said, transcendental love for me, this is text 27. Transcendental love for me arises by the devotional processes of hearing about me, seeing my deity form, meditating on me, and faithfully chanting my glories. The same result is not achieved by mere physical proximity, so please go back to your homes. So when the Brahmins' wives heard that, they were like, okay, we can be closer to Krishna by doing these devotional processes than by being in his personal association. So we'll go home so that we can be closer to Krishna. But the gopis are not, they're not having that. They're not, that instruction is not sitting well in their hearts, as young Dhruva said to Narada Muni. And they just became really morose by even the suggestion that they go back to their homes. So they were very frustrated, and their heads are heavy. They're hanging their heads. They're breathing so deeply. They're like sighing with every breath, and their breath is so strong that it's drying up their lips. And with their toes, their toenails, they're scratching the ground. And the acharyas explain that they keep scratching the ground. It's like they're digging, like archaeologists digging for some historical evidence, to find some historical precedent for Krishna sending away souls who have surrendered to him. You know, they're just like, we've come here, we've left everything for you. How is it that you're sending us home? So their tears are flowing from their eyes, washing their mascara. So this black kajal is dripping down their face and onto their breasts and mixing with the vermilion, the red kumkum powder there. And they're just in quite a state. But they're so stunned, actually, that for a while, nobody can say anything at all. They're just, it says, Shukadeva Goswami writes, thus they stood silently bearing the burden of their unhappiness. So that's their situation. And let's see. So then after a while of silence, then they stop crying and they wipe their eyes and they start to speak, because they have to say something, because after all, they've given up everything for Krishna. There's just no way that they're going back home. That is not a thought that they're even entertaining. So when Krishna speaks to them in this way, it's like, first they're so surprised, but after they're like, no, we need to say something. We can't just swallow this. We're not going to tolerate this. So out of their attachment for Krishna, they become agitated by his words and by their frustration, and they start to speak. In text 31. So the first thing they say is Ma Evam. They're speaking very strongly here. Ma Evam, don't speak in this way to us. So this anger is it's an emotion. It's one of the Sanchari Bhavas. It's an ecstatic emotion that's coming out of love. So it's not like anger, but it's like anger arising out of love, intense love. And so they say Ma Evam, like in Hindi also, they have this, when you say Ma, it's like the way you would speak to a child, like, don't do that, don't go on the road, don't touch that. It's very like sharp and like it has a sense of urgency. So it's like Ma Evam, don't speak to us this way. And then they also say Ma Tyaja, don't give us up like this, don't reject us. So, and they say, this is all from text 31, Nuri Samsham, your cruel words are killing us, because after all, Santyajya Sarva Vishayams, we have given up all sense objects. Everything that people desire in this world as sense objects, we've totally walked away from all that just to be here with you. So it's interesting that they don't say all other sense objects. They just say all sense objects, because they don't see Krishna as a sense object. They don't have any desire to enjoy Krishna's association, but they go there. So then what is their purpose? That also is said here, that Tavapada Mulam Bhakti. Tavapada Mulam Bhakti Bhajasva. Yeah. That their desire is to worship Krishna's feet with devotion. And so, yeah, so then they demand that we've come here as bhaktas. We are your bhaktas. And that, so therefore, bhajasva, you need to reciprocate with us, because you say that, yehi tam mam prapadyante, tams tataiva bhajamyaham, as all is surrendered to you, you reward them accordingly. So here we are, surrendering to you with bhakti, giving up everything else and coming to you. Now you have to reciprocate with us. And then they give the example of Narayan. They say, this is what it says in the verse, reciprocate with us, O stubborn one. Just as the primeval Lord Sri Narayan reciprocates with his devotees in their endeavors for liberation. So they're making this point, because Gargamuni said that he's as good as Narayan. So they're like, yeah, you're as good as Narayan. Well, Narayan reciprocates with those who desire liberation, and he gives them liberation. But we're not even asking for liberation. We just simply want your association. So at least grant us that. That's their starting plea. So the acharyas give this beautiful example of the Chataka bird. So there's this bird in India called the Chataka bird that drinks only rainwater. It won't drink water from a puddle or from a dripping tap or from a river, only pure rainwater. So then if there's a drought, the Chataka bird just won't drink any other. It'll just wait. And sometimes it will die of thirst, but it won't drink water from another source. But then when the Chataka bird sees a dark cloud coming, like a storm cloud coming in the sky, then she gets hope. And then when the rain comes, then the bird goes flying up into the sky to try to catch some drops. But the cloud also throws thunderbolts. So it's dangerous, right? Because the storm cloud is there. She's going for the rain, but there's a danger of thunderbolts. But still, it doesn't diminish the Chataka's bird determination to approach the cloud. So this is like the Gopis. They're like Chataka birds. It's like only Krishna, nothing else. There's nothing else in this world that they're slightly interested in. They want only Krishna. But now Krishna is throwing some thunderbolts. Still, like the Chataka bird, the Gopis are undaunted. It's still just only Krishna. It's that mood, right? From Shikshastika, Ashlishyava Padaratam Pinashtamam Adarshana Marma Hatakarotiva Yata Va Vidadata Lampato Mat Prananatastu Saevanapara. That they know no one but Krishna is their Lord. And even if he handles them roughly, makes them brokenhearted by not being present before, or speaks some words, tells them to go home, whatever, they still love him and no one else, and they love him unconditionally. So that's the mood of the Gopis, that we should have that mood. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, like everything is just yours. My whole life is for you. Sampade, Vipane, Jivane, Marane. you can kill me or you can protect me as you like. I'm just yours. I'm your servant. Do whatever you want with me, like that. So whether it's good, whether it's bad, it doesn't matter. It's all just for Krishna. Krishna is the only goal, the only shelter, the only object of love and attachment. So yeah, so like in the beginning of our lives, spiritual lives, devotees talk about balance. We need to have a balance between material and spiritual life. And that may be a fact for most devotees. There needs to be some balance. But when one develops this intense eagerness, like the gopis, then where's the question of balance? There's no need for balance. It's all just everything for Krishna, and we don't need to worry, what about my maintenance? Because my body belongs to Krishna. Krishna is going to maintain it. So yeah, so the gopis, there's no balance in the gopis' life. It's like the scales are just Krishna. Like that. So all right, so then text 2, they're saying, Krishna, as an expert in religion, you've advised us that we should that a proper religious duty for women is to faithfully serve their husbands, children, and relatives. We agree this principle is valid, but actually this service should be rendered to you. After all, O Lord, you are the dearmost friend of all embodied souls. You are the most intimate relative, and indeed their very self. So before he had said that, you're women, you have to do your Sri Dharma, you need to serve your husbands, but they're making this point that you're actually the husband of all living entities. You're our eternal husband. And one who has a relationship with Krishna as their husband will never be separated, will never be divorced or widowed. They'll be eternally happy. So yeah, and throughout the Bhagavatam, we see different places where Lakshmi, and here the gopis, and also Rukmini, they preach to all women of the world to directly serve Krishna. They say things like, what is the need for a husband who is just an illusory shelter that he promises to provide and protect you, but what can he do? He doesn't know, he makes all these promises and maybe has best intentions and maybe he's actually responsible, but he has his karma also. Who knows whether he'll be able to provide for you? Who knows whether he'll be able to protect even himself, what to speak of you? And in any case, at the time of death, you'll definitely be parted, and everyone needs to fly their own plane, like we were talking about in class yesterday. So really, Krishna is the only husband, the best husband, and for someone on the advanced level is the only husband. So let's see, text 33. Yeah, and then the gopis say, even transcendentalists always direct their affection towards you because they recognize you as their true self and eternal beloved. So what use do we have for these husbands and family members who simply give us trouble? Yeah, so now they're hold on. Yeah, they're referring to expert transcendentalists to back up their arguments, because they're thinking, well, why should Krishna listen to us? We're just village women. Let's quote the expert transcendentalists. They give this instruction that everyone should direct their affection towards Krishna as their eternal beloved, towards you, Krishna. So we're just doing that. We're just following the footsteps of the expert transcendentalists. How can you condemn us for that? How can you direct us otherwise? Don't you know the transcendental science? So the gopis are saying, at the end of this verse, they're saying, therefore, O Supreme Controller, grant us your mercy. O Lotus-eyed One, please do not cut down our long cherished hope to have your association. So they have this hope. Because the gopis grew up with Krishna, they've been seeing Krishna from the very beginning of their lives, and they've just watching Krishna grow. And as they're growing with him, they're becoming more attracted and more attracted every day to Krishna. And this hope is also growing. So they're saying when Krishna would come home from the pasturing grounds, they would embrace him within their hearts, dreaming, day after day, dreaming more intensely and longing more intensely for the time that they would meet. And they're telling him, you planted the seed of desire in our hearts by your loving glances. you know, when you were coming home those days. And now that seed has grown into a tree. And it's said in the Vedas that you should not cut down a fully grown tree. So you can't cut down our hope now that it's ripe, now that it's all about to come to fruition. So, then the next 34, they said, until today, our minds were absorbed in household affairs, but you easily stole both our minds and our hands away from our housework. Now our feet won't move one step from your lotus feet. How can we go back to Vraj? What would we do there? So they're saying, you're telling us to go home and be absorbed in our house. So we've been doing that until now. Our whole lives have been doing just that. And we were doing it very peacefully, actually, until you came along and played your flute. And he said, and you dragged us away from that. And then they say that like a criminal, you drugged us with your flute's intoxicating music, and you stole our goods. You stole away our valuable goods, our minds, our senses, our shyness, our sobriety. And so we've come here to demand back our stolen property. But because our senses are under your control, we have no power to move our feet. So we're just standing here waiting for you to do something. But they were very happily standing there, and that the word there is used, sukena, chitam sukena bhagavat paritam, that you've stolen away our minds, you've stolen away our hearts, but we're very happy about that. we're happy to have all these things stolen away. And then they say, yeah, if we go home, what would we do there now? After giving it up, there's nothing there for us to do. We have no interest there. We would just be like dead dolls with no mental or sensory power, because the only thing that we are capable of doing is serving you. That's the only thing that we're meant for, and the only thing that we will do. That's their determination. Now in text 35, the gopis are really becoming very direct, because they don't want Krishna to, they want to make their intention very clear to Krishna. So they're very open. At first they were seeming like angry. They're like, how can you say this? Don't say this. Don't do this to us. Don't be so cruel. And now they're expressing their desire. Text 35, dear Krishna, please pour the nectar of your lips upon the fire within our hearts, a fire you ignited with your smiling glances and the sweet song of your flute. If you do not, we will consign our bodies to the fire of separation from you, O friend, and thus like yogis attain to the abode of your lotus feet by meditation. So yeah, they're saying there's this fire, Hritshaya Agni, fire in our hearts, which you ignited with your first glance. And then all the subsequent glances after that were like, just like pouring ghee on that fire and making it blaze higher. And the song of your flute is like the wind that's blowing the fire and fueling it with oxygen and making it blaze even more intensely. So now it's up to you. You started this fire, you need to put it out. And how are you going to put it out? You need to extinguish it by pouring on it the flood of nectar which comes from your lips. So yeah, and they said this fire is Virahaja Agni, the fire of separation. So now we've been separated from you so long, and we are also even standing here in your presence. We're suffering from separation because you're not accepting us. And if you don't accept us at all, then we're going to die in this fire like the yogis do. They just burn, just like, you know, Dhritarashtra, we were just hearing about in Bhagavatam class, how he, by the fire of his yogic power, he just spontaneously combusted his whole body and burnt to ashes. So like that, they're saying if we're just going to fix our minds like you like the yogis, and give up these useless bodies. Because the gopis have no reason for existence except to serve Krishna. So text 36, they say, "O lotus-eyed one, the goddess of fortune considers it a festive occasion when she touches the soles of your lotus feet. You are very dear to the residents of the forest, and therefore we will also touch those lotus feet. From that time on, we will be unable even to stand in the presence of any other man, for we will have been fully satisfied by you. So here the gopis are expressing some confidence. You can see this is a very confident verse. So first of all, the confidence comes from saying that you're very dear to the residents of the forest. And here, by that also, they mean the forest, also the village, like rural people who live in the countryside. And we're village women, and we live in this forest. So you're bound to be compassionate to us. You will be compassionate to us. And they say here, us prakshma, we shall touch, we will touch. It's not that we would like to touch, or we hope to touch, or we desire to touch. They're saying, no, we will touch your lotus feet. We are going to be in physical contact with you. And that's just a fact. Only time is separating us. Just when you overcome your stubbornness, it's all going to happen. Then the next verse, they say, wait. The next verse? Yeah. Goddess Lakshmi, whose glance is sought after by the demigods with great endeavor, has achieved the unique position of always remaining on the chest of Lord Narayan. Still, she desires the dust of his lotus feet, even though she has to share that dust with Tulsi Devi, and indeed with the Lord's many other servants. Similarly, we have approached the dust of your lotus feet for shelter. So here we can see that the gopis, they're not approaching Krishna with lust. And we hear this is like all over the place in their prayers. That although they're saying, please, extinguish the fire in our hearts by putting your hand on our heads and on our breasts, and we want to touch you and like that. But here they're saying that, but what are they approaching? The dust of Krishna's lotus feet for shelter and for service, that they just want to dedicate themselves to his service. And in text 38, they call him, they say the same thing, that we have no desire other than to serve you. And it's for that we've given up everything, just to serve you. But yet our hearts are burning with intense desires generated by your beautiful smiling glance. O jewel among men, please make us your maidservants. So they want to serve him, and they know that Krishna has this desire to relish. Krishna is a supreme enjoyer, and he enjoys all relationships, and he's in the mood for enjoying the conjugal rasa. We saw that in the very first verse of text 29. It said that his mind turned towards enjoyment of the conjugal rasa. And the gopis know that Krishna likes this relationship. He's now in the mood of enjoying this relationship. And we are the perfect people for him to enjoy this relationship with him, because that's who we are. We're all about that. And so their lust is, it's like an apparent lust. It's not real lust, but it manifests it's a manifestation of Leela Shakti, of Krishna's Leela potency to facilitate this pastime. So here they call him Purusha Bhushana, which means, literally it means the male ornament. It translates, oh, jewel among men. So, they have put on so many ornaments. They've dressed themselves up in fine clothes and jewelry. And now they're awaiting the ultimate ornament, the Purusha Bhushana, that Krishna, the jewel of males, is going to decorate them with his jewel-like limbs by embracing them. So this thing about the gopis being wanting to serve Krishna, it doesn't mean that their madhurya has changed to dasya when they call themselves his maidservants, but that they're always in madhurya rasa. But in all of the rasas, it's just about service. So and so the mood, the way that they want to serve him is by basically offering their transcendental bodies to Krishna. Yeah, and it says here that this is from Brihat Bhagavatamrita. There's a quote that the gopis are very dedicated devotees. They're not just looking to enjoy Krishna, but they're thinking, Krishna, because you are a vast ocean of desires, and because also you are a woman hunter, it's our service to fulfill your desires. Our lust is an instrument for fulfilling your desire. It is essential paraphernalia for worshiping you as you desire, and it is inspired by you. So they understand the situation, that this is all for Krishna's pleasure. Then text 29, this text 29, Jiva Goswami says, is in response to a question that Krishna asks, which is, why are you just standing there staring at me? So then the gopis answer that basically we're captured by your beauty. And so they start describing his beautiful features. Seeing your face encircled by curly locks of hair, your cheeks beautified by earrings, your lips full of nectar and your smiling glance, and also seeing your two imposing arms which take away our fear, and your chest, which is the only source of pleasure for the goddess of fortune, we must become your maidservants. So yeah, Jiva Goswami goes on to explain this, that Krishna's locks of hair are like ropes that have tied the gopis. His earrings are like the coils of a serpent that wraps them up. His cheeks are like a cage, and his lips are the delicious bait within that cage that they become locked in. His eyes are like a bird, Kanjana bird, a very beautiful bird, which hunters use as bait to catch other animals. So it says his eyes were like Kanjana birds, which lure them into Krishna's trap, building a false trust. And so like this, the gopis are hopelessly captured by Krishna. Then there's a reference to this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Untitled Chapter 15, text 71 to 71 onward. Says, Krishna's Kaviraj writes, after conquering the moon and the lotus flower, Krishna wished to capture the doe-like gopis. Thus he spread the noose of his beautiful face, and within that noose he placed the bait of his secret smile to misguide the gopis. The gopis fell prey to that trap and became Krishna's maidservants, giving up their homes, families, husbands, and prestige. So it's a similar kind of analogy. So we can see here it's very intense, it's a very intense situation for the gopis and also for Krishna, but we're seeing it more from the gopis side, that they're love and then they're frustrated, but they're totally hopelessly trapped and wondering whether Krishna is going to accept them, whether he's going to reject them. If he rejects them, then what are they going to do, because they can't go home. And so, Srila Prabhupada used to laugh whenever people would say that spiritual love is peaceful. The impersonalists, they're like, yes, meditate and be peaceful, and spiritual life means peace and tranquility. So maybe for the impersonalists, yeah, but for pure devotees, it's a different story. It's very intense, and especially in the conjugal rasa. It said that in Madhurya Kadambini, it said that that when one first sees Krishna, it's so intense that the devotee just faints. That's like, it's totally overwhelming. It's not peaceful. So, text 40. Dear Krishna, what woman in all the three worlds wouldn't deviate from religious behavior when bewildered by the sweet, drawn-out melody of your flute? Your beauty makes all three worlds auspicious. Indeed, even the cows, birds, trees, and deer manifest the ecstatic symptoms of bodily hair, standing on end when they see your beautiful form. So previously, Krishna had raised this question that, if you girls stay here with me, then what example is this going to set for other women who are faithfully serving their husbands? You're going to set a bad example, and you're going to destroy society. You're going to be basically encouraging adultery. So the gopis say, well, you can't blame us. All the women in all the three worlds, including the demigoddesses, become enchanted by hearing your flute and seeing your irresistible beauty. And not only the humans, but even they're saying here, the cows, the birds, the trees, the deer, even the animals and plants. We heard that when Krishna played his flute, they all just, even the stones melted, the rivers stopped flowing, everyone and everything became agitated. So you can't blame us. And in anyways, they don't need our example to become attracted to you. They're already attracted. And even the expansions, even Krishna's own incarnations like Varaha, Nrsimha, Ramachandra are attracted by the song of Krishna's flute. So let's go on here a little bit. Text 42. All right, so now, I skipped one. Text 41. Clearly you have taken birth in this world to relieve fear and distress of the people of Raj. Just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the primeval Lord, protects the domain of the demigods. So like, just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead protects the demigods and relieves their distress, you should also. Like, they see Krishna as someone other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But you should relieve the fear and distress of the people of Raj. Therefore, O friend of the distressed, we're so distressed right now, and you can relieve it very easily by just placing your lotus hand on our heads and on our burning breasts. So when the gopis said this, then Krishna smiled, and this smile gives them a lot of hope, because they interpret it that Krishna accepted them. Let's see. Yeah, so it says he accepted them and mercifully enjoyed with them, although he is self-satisfied. So Atmarama, self-satisfied, means that Krishna derives satisfaction from himself. And that gives us an insight into who the gopis are, that actually the gopis are just expansions of Krishna's self. They're his own internal potencies. So it's like another place is described that when Krishna is enjoying himself with his associates, it's because they're all his energies. It's like a child looking in the mirror and seeing his own face and enjoying, making funny faces in the mirror and laughing. It's like he's just enjoying the interaction with his own self, the own reflection of his own self. So Krishna is, in this way, he's enjoying the gopis who are his energies. And even though the gopis have no desire to enjoy Krishna, still they enjoy pleasure 10 million times more even than what Krishna experiences. That happiness is kind of imposed on them, like Krishna gives them happiness even though they don't want it. But when the gopis become happy, then Krishna becomes more happy. And when the gopis see that Krishna is happy, then that makes them more happy. And like that, it's ever increasing. Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, ever increasing ocean of transcendental bliss and beauty. That when the beauty of Krishna increases when he sees the gopis' beauty. And then when the gopis see that Krishna is even more beautiful, then their beauty increases. And like that, it just upwardly spirals. So it's this intense exchange of deep, positive emotions, that are born out of pure love and not any sexual attraction. So it's totally different vibe, from when you walk into a room where there's just, a mundane man and woman are engaging in lustful interactions, and you just see that, and you're like, ugh, like you don't want to look at it. You just, let me out of here, right? Quick. So, yeah, that's kind of like, it makes us awkward and uncomfortable, and makes us feel kind of like just dirty and kind of disgusted. But Krishna's pastimes with the gopis aren't like that. The interaction of Krishna and the gopis actually inspire our own love for Krishna, because of this quality that none of them are seeking enjoyment for themselves. The gopis came to serve. And actually, the gopis have this feeling that if their enjoyment interferes with their service, they will condemn their own enjoyment. Like when Radharani is looking at Krishna, if her eyes fill with tears, that she can't see Krishna, then she'll check her own ecstasy. Or we have that pastime with Daruka, Krishna's chariot driver. He's fanning Krishna, but then he starts getting choked up and he can't do his service. He starts getting like trembling in ecstasy, and that's affecting his fanning. So then he pushes down his ecstasy so that he can fan smoothly, like that. So yeah, so this quality of Atmarama is there, that Krishna is self-sufficient. He doesn't need anyone to make him happy, but he prefers to enjoy pastimes with the devotees. That interactions with his devotees increase his transcendental bliss. And he also wants to give pleasure to the devotees. So that's his inspiration, that's his motivation, is to give pleasure to the devotees. He always wants to give pleasure to the devotees, and that's why he's called Govinda, one who gives pleasure to the senses, to the cows and to the senses. So because Krishna is unlimited, then he wants to increase his devotees unlimitedly. Because he wants to enjoy with devotees, he wants to give the devotees enjoyment, but the desire to give devotees enjoyment is unlimited, so he needs unlimited devotees to give that unlimited enjoyment to. So therefore, any devotee who helps the Lord to make more devotees, in other words, who preaches Krishna consciousness, who cultivates and trains new devotees in Krishna consciousness, is very blessed. And that's why Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya, to try to make more devotees, to try to bring all these fallen souls to Krishna consciousness. And so that's real friendship with Krishna, means to know Krishna's heart, to know what Krishna wants. And Krishna wants more devotees. Krishna wants more gopis to enjoy his pastimes with. So that's our goal. When we're preaching, we can meditate on that we're not just, we're not just making devotees to cover all the services in the temple or to save them from hellish life, but our goal in preaching is to bring more gopis into Krishna's rasa dance. And we also should have progressive plans for elevating devotees to this higher levels of bhakti. So here in this verse, we're still looking at verse 42. The word here used is Yogeshvara, Yogeshvareshvara. Krishna is referred to as Yoga Ishvara, Ishvara, that he's the master of all masters of mystic powers. So then this answers the question, because there's so many gopis, there's hundreds of devotees, hundreds of gopis. So how is it that Krishna is able to enjoy with all those gopis? It's because by his mystic powers, because he's the master of mystic powers, he can easily expand himself. And so he expands himself to be with all of the gopis, like that. And in text 43, he's called Achyuta, which means infallible, that he didn't fail in giving satisfaction to all the gopis. All of them were equally happy. Nobody was thinking, oh, Krishna's with her, but what about me? There's none of this what about me kind of thing, because everybody is completely satisfied. And so Krishna, their fear now of rejection is gone, and says that among the assembled gopis, the infallible Lord Krishna appeared just like the moon surrounded by stars. Remember in the very beginning, Krishna was describing the stars, the moon, as Udu Raja, that the moon is the king of stars. And that was like a little foreshadowing that Krishna, like the moon, would enjoy himself surrounded by all the stars, the gopis. So this is happening. The infallible Lord Krishna appeared just like the moon surrounded by stars. He whose activities are so magnanimous made their faces blossom with his affectionate glances. His broad smiles revealed the effulgence of his jasmine bud-like teeth. Krishna's little teeth, like jasmine buds. And the gopis' faces blossomed in the light of Krishna's affectionate glances. So now they start their kirtan. So Krishna is enjoying with them. He's dancing with them, and they're singing. They're all singing. It says, as the gopis sing Krishna's praises, that leader of hundreds of women sang loudly in reply. He moved among them, wearing his Vaijayanti garland, beautifying the Vrindavan forest. So the word here is upagiyamana. that being sung about, and Udgayan, singing loudly himself. So they're singing about him, and he's singing about them. And this is basically Krishna's the kirtan leader, Udgayan. He's singing about the beauty of Vrindavan and the beauty of the gopis, and then they would respond saying something related. It's kind of like a conversation, but it's happening in song. You can imagine it saying, oh, the quality of the moon is like this. And then the gopis would say, oh, yes, you are like the moon and you also have those qualities. They say, oh, Krishna would say, the quality, look at the creepers on the trees, how beautiful they are. And then the gopis would say, yes, they're embracing the tree just like we're going to embrace you, or something like that. They would respond to whatever he said, and they're singing back and forth. Or they would just say his name, kind of like a chorus. He would sing something beautiful, and then they would just respond by chanting, singing the Hare Krishna mantra, or singing different names. So like this, sometimes the gopis were singing individually to their own Krishna, who had expanded to be with them. And sometimes there would be like a gopi group leader who would sing, and they would all sing in unison. So like that, this big Sankirtan festival was going. So here it's describing like different ways that Krishna would interact with the gopis. And so Kavi Karnapur says that in the Rasa Lila, Krishna's Rasa Lila, there's 4 kinds of activities. There's forest pastimes, because they take place in the forest. So then Krishna, he uses all the forest resources to, enhance and just engage in this lila. So he'll get leaves from the trees and use his fingernail to write little love letters, little love notes to the gopis. Or sometimes he picks flowers and leaves and makes them into little like decorations, like armlets and earrings and waist belts for the gopis. And Krishna will get pollen from the flowers, the yellow pollen, when you smell the flower and you get yellow on your nose. So he gets that yellow and he puts it on their cheeks, which are already kind of golden, and it makes them shiny. Or sometimes he sprinkles it like glitter on their hair. And the gopis also, they make similarly flower decorations, garlands that they put on him, and they put flowers in his hair, or they make little flower anklets to go around his feet. And then sometimes, like after decorating each other with flowers, they'll make flower bombs and they'll have flower fights. And then, so they'll be dancing, embracing, and having this flower fights. And then they get tired. And so for some refreshment, they'll go to the Yamuna, and they'll have water pastimes. They'll play in the water, splash each other in the water. So the Yamuna is described here. Yeah, text 45 and 46. Sri Krishna went with the gopis to the bank of the Yamuna, where the sand was cooling, and the wind, enlivened by the river's waves, bore the fragrance of lotuses. There Krishna threw his arms around the gopis and embraced them. He aroused Cupid in the beautiful young ladies of Raj by touching their hands, hair, thighs, belts, and breasts, by playfully scratching them with his fingernails, and also by joking with them, glancing at them, and laughing with them. In this way, the Lord enjoyed his pastimes. So while in the midst of all these pastimes, whether they're embracing or dancing or in the water or whatever, there's always what's pervading them all is these joking conversations and like love-laden glances. It's always going on. Yeah, so here the Yamuna's bank is described as it says cool, but Hima actually means snow. That like Himalaya means the place of the snow. So they're shiny. They're like a silvery sand that reflects the moonlight like snow. Looks white and shiny, and also it's very cooling. So they're like hot from dancing and twirling and having like this very active, and then they get warm, and then they go to the cool banks of the Yamuna. And so then you might wonder, well, if Krishna expands himself to be with all the gopis, then how is it that they think that they're alone with Krishna when they're all right there? So it's explained that it's just like, when we're chanting japa in the temple, there's a lot of devotees also chanting japa. But if you get very absorbed in your japa, then you become unaware of the other devotees around you. So in the same way, the gopis are so absorbed in Krishna that they don't see that the other gopis are also enjoying with Krishna. So there's still, even though they're all together there, there's still a sense of privacy and intimacy. And that also is achieved by the grace of Yoga Maya. Okay, so then what happened next is the gopis became proud of themselves for having received such special attention from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and each of them thought herself the best woman on earth. So thinking, I'm alone with Krishna. Krishna is the most wonderful person, and all these gopis were here, and now it's Krishna's only with me. So they're thinking like that. I must be the best woman on earth, that out of all of the others, Krishna has chosen to be with me for his intimate pastimes. He's selected me to be his most intimate lover. And they were all thinking like that. So then Krishna, when he saw that, then well, first of all, their pride, it wasn't real pride. It wasn't the kind of pride that, like that's just like arrogance or haughtiness, but their pride is in relation to Krishna. So it's spiritual. It's not mundane. They were proud of Krishna more. It wasn't so much that they were proud of themselves, but they were proud of Krishna. It was more like an indirect glorification of Krishna. That Krishna is so wonderful. The fact that he's chosen me to be with him, I must be pretty good too. But it's mainly about Krishna. And also it's described that it's kind of a pretense too. They're not really proud, but it was just this apparent pride was incited by Krishna's Lila Shakti, his pastime potency, in order to enhance the enjoyment, because love is heightened by separation, right? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So the separation and reunion makes the reunion after separation is more blissful. All right. So then Krishna sees their pride, and what does he do? He just disappears. So seeing the gopis too proud of their good fortune, wanting to relieve them of this pride and show them further mercy, he immediately disappeared. And it was so instantly that a gopi was with a garland and she was going to put the garland on Krishna, and then he just disappeared and she's left standing holding the garland like this, or they're dancing and one gopi's spinning around, and when she spins back to Krishna, Krishna's not there. So he just like swing, he's just gone. So then he leaves, to remove the pride of the gopis, also to favor Srimati Radharani, because she's the best gopi, and also to exhibit his opulence of renunciation, that he doesn't need to be with them, he can just leave any moment. So then the midst, they're like in the pinnacle, the best part of the pastimes, and Krishna just disappears, like, yeah, I'm not attached to this, I don't really need this. But his main thing is to actually increase the love of the gopis, and also to bring them together with each other. So then when Krishna left the gopis, then the gopis went completely mad, basically. The word is used there, unmada, which means transcendental madness. But at the same time, they felt sorrow and remorse, because they understood that it was due to their own pride that Krishna left them. So it says that Kavi Karnapur always explains the things so poetically. He says that the gopis were sailing on the river, being pushed by the winds of Prem. But then Krishna broke the boat of the gopis' confidence. And so the gopis had to bail out the water of their pride. Or the pain of the gopis was like embracing hot coals, like their bodies were smeared with a deadly poison, or lemon juice poured on an open wound, or a knife piercing a sensitive nerve. So that's the pain that they felt when Krishna left. It was like that. It was like 1 minute they're embracing Krishna, the next minute they're embracing hot coals, the burning pain of separation from Krishna. They became completely deranged. So then Yeah, I mean, we can relate to this, like anybody who has lost, who's had like a very close family member, like a spouse or parent or child, to like, suddenly leave their body. Then it can be very maddening. You can feel like the grief can be so intense that you feel like you're almost going to go crazy. You're going crazy. But actually, our closest relationship is with Krishna. We are parts and parcels of Krishna. We're eternally related with Krishna. So the fact that now we're separated from Krishna, we should also be going mad. We should also be like, delusional with grief out of being separate from Krishna. So why are we not in that state? Why are we just, enjoying life, going for a peaceful walk and going for a bike ride, sitting down and eating, laughing, joking, and everything's okay. Why are we able to live? The gopis were like dying. So the point is that in the conditioned state, our hearts are, as the Bhagavatam describes, steel framed, like in a steel cage. But the fire of Krishna consciousness, or devotional service, which is basically interaction with Krishna, it gradually melts that steel. So that's what we're doing now. We're trying to melt the steel. We're trying to melt away that steel frame of the heart so that our transcendental emotions can get out of the cage. Basically, they're in there. It's all in there, but it's encaged in steel. So when as the steel melts, then this transcendental emotions start to flow and flood the heart. And this happens at the bhava stage. That's what bhava means. Bhava means emotion. So Radharani's heart is not steel framed. It's described as being soft as freshly churned butter. That if you have butter and it's soft, it's not from the fridge, but it's like been sitting in a warm place. So you just touch it and it leaves a deep impression that stays there. So that's Radharani's love. We need to make our hearts soft like that any contact with Krishna consciousness leaves a deep impression. It's like it really touches the heart. It like, we use that word, it touches us. Yeah. So yeah, and then when the emotions of bhava become condensed and intensified, and then there's a feeling of possessiveness of Krishna also in pure, transcendental platform, then that is called prema. That's prema. Another analogy you could use is that the soul is sometimes compared to iron and Krishna is a magnet. So the nature of the soul is to be irresistibly attracted to Krishna, the way iron is attracted to a magnet. But if the magnet is too far away, or if the iron is too rusty, then it won't be pulled to the magnet. And similarly, like if we're too far away, or if our hearts are rusty, if they're too covered over with the rust of, material contamination, conditioning, anarthas, all that, then our hearts won't be pulled to Krishna. Although naturally that's the state, that Krishna is all attractive and we are ever attracted to him. But then Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti removes the rust and brings us closer to Krishna until we finally get close enough that so it's like the magnets here, when you play with magnets, you got a strong magnet here and then you have an iron here. So like now they're just sitting there, but then you move it closer, nothing, move it closer, nothing, you move it closer, and then zoop. It just goes like that, right? So that's what happens, that Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti brings us closer to Krishna. Also, it's getting that rust off. So like, it's actually, well, first of all, it's here. It's rusty. It's not moving, but the rust is getting off. Finally, there's no more rust. Okay, now it's attracted. So it's attracted a little bit. It's getting closer. So that's what's happening as we advance in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And then when we get to the highest states of Krishna consciousness, then that attraction is very strong and we just fly to Krishna. Our thoughts fly to Krishna, our hearts fly to Krishna. And in this way, that the higher stages of devotional service advancement is very quick. So like, yeah, bhava very quickly elevates one to prema. But in order to get to this stage, the material subtle body has to be basically totally dismantled. The material mind, the material intelligence, the false ego, it all has to be dissolved. We have to be just totally beyond the bodily concept, beyond the mental concept. These things have to be absolutely dismantled in order for us to fly to Krishna. So, but it's a gradual process, and we have all these examples, like the Gopis, to aspire for. And yeah, so we see here that there's no like, this is just the Gopis and Krishna are just going on the platform of pure prema bhakti, which is extremely sweet, and it has this very unique sweetness and tenderness in all the interactions, and it's very different from interactions between men and women in this world, where like even if if you're just talking to if any man and woman are talking together, it's like you can be having a nice conversation, and then it's so annoying sometimes. You can feel this as devotees. It's like it's not a welcome thing. You're just trying to have a conversation with somebody, and the conversation becomes nice, it becomes sweet, it's Krishna conscious, and then somehow the sexual energy gets in there. It just sneaks in, and it just interferes, and it starts dragging the whole exchange down to the physical platform. And then you start thinking, oh, how do I look? I wonder how the person perceives me. And it's just like, ugh. It's like, just go away, just leave me alone. I was having a nice transcendental conversation until you came along and made it all just like so mundane. So that happens. But with Krishna and the Gopis, that never happens. There's no sexual energy. There's nothing to bring it down. It's always just rising higher and higher and higher to new transcendental levels. So yeah, spiritual relationships are nice. Let's see, where are we? We're on the next chapter already. Chapter 30, text 3. Because the beloved Gopis were absorbed in thoughts of their beloved Krishna, okay, so they're feeling separation from Krishna, and they're so absorbed, they're deeply absorbed in the thoughts of Krishna, and they're starting to imitate him. It's like they're so absorbed in thinking of him that they start smiling like him and walking like him and talking like him. And yeah, Kavi Karnapur explains this, that their absorption in Krishna's pastimes generated these says because the Gopis' minds were so absorbed in Krishna, their bodies also started imitating Krishna. They would do things, and they started acting out his pastimes. And then this acting out of Krishna's pastimes generated temporary waves of solace, which pacified the waves of separation. So the Gopis started, they stopped feeling immersion in his pastimes, gave them a sense of Krishna's presence, so that pain of separation diminished a little bit. And then because the madness that they were in subsided, then they were able to come to more of a sense of self-awareness. And in that self-awareness, now they thought, well, let's be practical. Let's not just like be totally devastated by grief and all just sit here crying and wanting to kill ourselves. Let's do something practical. Let's try to find him. So then they started searching for him. In text 4, it says, singing loudly of Krishna, they searched for him throughout the Vrindavan forest like a band of mad women. They even asked the trees about him, who as the super soul is present inside and outside of all created things, just like the sky. So yeah, it says there that the Krishna vanat vanam, from one vana to the other vanam, they're looking for Krishna. And they're singing loudly, so that in the hopes that Krishna is going to hear them and manifest himself. And they're asking the trees about, they're going to this tree and that tree. Have you seen Krishna? And that's how it's talking about in the next verses. So the Gopis said, oh Ashvati tree, oh Plaksha, oh Nyagroda, have you seen Krishna? That son of Nandaraj has gone away after stealing our minds with his loving smiles and glances. So very respectfully, they approach the trees, and they complain that that Krishna's smiles and glances have come and stolen our hearts and minds. And we need to get justice, basically. So they addressed the tallest tree first, the banyan tree. Ashvata means the banyan. They addressed the tallest tree, thinking that this tree has the best view, and being very high. So if any of the trees have seen Krishna, it's this banyan tree. And they wait for an answer, but there's no answer from any of these trees. And so they think, oh, maybe these trees are just so proud because they're tall. They're proud of their height. Or maybe they're just miserable because their fruits are not in season, or their buds are not blossoming, and because of that they're just hard-hearted and they won't help us. So then they turn to another set of trees, ones that are smaller and ones which have flowers. So they think, oh, these trees are going to be humble. They're not so, and they're going to be soft-hearted because they have flowers. They're happy. So then they say, oh, Kurabaka tree, oh, Ashoka, oh, Naga, Punaga, and Champaka. Has Balaram's younger brother, whose smile removes the audacity of all proud women, passed this way? So they're also they want to find Krishna so he'll smile at them and remove their pride. Also, they're still like conscious of their fault of pride. They approach these trees, and even these trees don't say anything. So then the gopis are really feeling unfortunate. And so they think, well, these trees aren't helping us. Let's try Tulsi. So then they go to Tulsi Devi. And they say, oh, most kind Tulsi, to whom the feet of Govinda are so dear. Have you seen that infallible one walk by, wearing you and encircled by swarms of bees? So yeah, they know that they address Tulsi as dear to Govinda, Govinda Charana Priya, that you are very dear to Krishna and you're always situated on his feet. So you must know where Krishna is because you're always with him. But then even Tulsi doesn't say anything. And then they think, oh, maybe Tulsi just can't sympathize with our situation of separation because she's never separated from Krishna. She's always with Krishna. She doesn't understand what it feels like to be separated from Krishna. So she's just looking at us like, she doesn't understand our problem. So then when Tulsi doesn't answer, then they turn to some other trees. They say, oh, Malati, oh, Malika, or Jati, and Utika. Has Madhava gone by here, giving you pleasure with the touch of his hand? Because they see these trees have a lot of flowers and they're bowing down. The branches are going down. So they think, oh, Krishna must have passed by these trees because they're all blooming. So we saw before in the description of the forest that when Krishna would pass by, the trees and would erupt into buds and then flowers and fruits. And then they would bow down and offer their fruits and flowers to Krishna like that. So when they saw these particular bushes bending down humbly, they thought Krishna must have passed by here and Krishna must have touched them. They must have seen Krishna. But even then, they don't get any reply. So they're literally just going here and there, asking every plant, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? And then finally they turn to the earth. They think, yes, the earth, because whenever Krishna is walking, his feet are touching the earth. So she must know exactly where he is because she's always connected to his location. She's one earth, and wherever Krishna are, she can feel his feet. So she knows where his feet are right at this present time, and she can tell us his location. So they think that maybe also like Tulsi, she won't have sympathy for us because she's never separated from him. So then instead of trying to get her compassion, they think, they try this strategy of let's do whatever she did because she's always got Krishna's feet on her. And we want Krishna to put his feet on our heads. We want Krishna to put his feet on our breasts. So let's do what she did. And we know that she did austerity. So let's find out what she did, because if we do that, he'll also put his feet on us. So that's what they say. Oh, Mother Earth, what austerity did you perform to attain the touch of Lord Kesava's lotus feet, which has brought you such great joy that your bodily hairs are standing on end? You appear very beautiful in this condition. Was it during the Lord's current appearance that you acquired this ecstatic symptom? Or was it perhaps much earlier when he stepped upon you in his form of the dwarf Vamanadev? Or even earlier when he embraced you in his form of the boar Varahadev? So like this, they're talking to the earth. Then after that, they approached the deer. O friend, wife of the deer, has Lord Achyuta been here with his beloved, bringing great joy to your eyes? Indeed, blowing this way is the fragrance of his garland of kunda flowers, which was smeared with the kumkum from the breast of his girlfriend when he embraced her. So here they're starting to understand that Krishna is not alone. He's with another gopi. And Shukadeva Goswami is not mentioning it, but he's just saying his girlfriend. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a nice commentary on this, that the gopis say to the deer, O friend, wife of the deer, from the bliss in your clear eyes, we can tell that Sri Krishna has expanded your joy with the beauty of his limbs, his face, and so forth. You are eager to realize the ecstasy of seeing Krishna. Thus your eyes are following him. In fact, he's never lost to you. Then the gopis, because the deer is just walking, like totally ignoring them. So then the gopis say, they're walking in a certain direction. The gopis say, oh, by walking that way, are you telling us that you have seen Krishna? That he's gone this way? Are you turning back to look at us, like to beckon us to follow you? And that you're going to take us to Krishna? But then the deer just keeps walking. The deer just runs off like deer do, and they lose sight of the deer. And then they become and then it says, one gopi suggests that Krishna must be somewhere in the vicinity, that the deer, being afraid of him, must have hidden herself to avoid the possible mistake of revealing his presence. So they're thinking Krishna must be here somewhere. He's got to be nearby. That's why the deer is acting this way. And the gopis, now they can smell this fragrance. See, they mention here the fragrance of the kunda flowers smeared with kumkum from the breast of the girlfriend that he's embracing. So they can smell that, and they can understand that this flower, this garland was the garland that Radharani was wearing. And the fact that we can smell the fragrance of those flowers means that Krishna must be embracing her. And when the flowers are getting crushed by his embrace, then they're emitting more fragrance. So they're thinking that Krishna's very near. So they go on asking the trees, and they're asking the creepers, and but they still aren't finding Krishna. So then again, they start acting out the pastimes of Krishna. This is when things get really bad, because before they were acting out the pastimes of Krishna. Then they thought, well, let's be practical, let's try to find him. But now they're just like so frustrated in their search that they're like, what to do? And they're so absorbed in thoughts of Krishna that they act out his different pastimes. So first, one gopi imitates Putana, one acts like Krishna, and another takes the role of a cart demon, and Krishna kicks the cart. One plays Trinavarta and carries away Krishna, and two act like Krishna and Balaram, cowherd boys. One acts like the demon Vatsasura, and another Bakasura. So like this, they're acting out all the different pastimes. And then finally, they get to the pastime of Damodar Lila. This is in text 23. One gopi tied up her slender companion. So they got the smallest one, the smallest, thinnest gopi to be Damodar, baby Krishna. And another one got her dupata, her cloth, and was tying us. Now I will bind this boy who has broken the butter pots and stolen the butter. And the other gopi is covering her face and rubbing her eyes and pretending to be afraid and crying. So just then, while they're acting out these pastimes and in the forest of Vrindavan, they see something. They see something there on the ground, which is one of Krishna's footprints. And they know it's Krishna's footprint because they've seen Krishna's footprints before, and they see all the unique symbols there: the flag, the lotus, the thunderbolt, the elephant goad, the barley corn, all these symbols. You can read about those in the purport to text 25, all the different symbols. And so then they start following. They see one footprint and they see another footprint, and now they're tracking him. It's like a hunter tracks an animal. They're tracking him by his footprints. And there's different groups of gopis. So all the gopis are here. And some of them are Radharani's Sakhis, or Radharani's friends. They're in her group. And others are Chandravali's friends. So you know that Radharani and Chandravali are kind of rival gopis. Although they love each other, but they have very different moods. And they compete for Krishna's attention. So when they got to know that Krishna had left all of them and gone off only with Radharani, then Radharani's gopis, they were happy because they're always trying to get Radha and Krishna together. And but Chandravali's gopis were really upset about that. And it says here that because eventually they're tracking Krishna's footprints, and then eventually they saw that also there was another pair of footprints next to them, and those were Radharani's, because Radharani also has special symbols on her feet, and they could see those symbols. So they thought, oh, Radha's together with Krishna. And so Chandravali's friends became perturbed. And they said this in text 27. Here we see the footprints of some gopi who must have been walking along with the son of Nanda Maharaj. He must have put his arm on her shoulder, just as an elephant rests his trunk on the shoulder of an accompanying she-elephant. So they're like, some gopi. They're not happy with that gopi. And then, so they're saying that with the tone, it's not so much what they said, but how they're saying it. They're saying it like Shukadeva Goswami says, perturbed. So they're saying it like with this tone, they're just really annoyed, like, who is this gopi think she is? So then Radharani's friends reply in text 28 they come to Radharani's defense, and they say, this is a famous verse. I'll read the Sanskrit. Anaya radito nunam bhagavan harir ishvaraha yanno vihaya govinda prito yam anaya rahaha. So this verse is the verse where Shukadeva Goswami says the name of Radha in the Bhagavatam. It's the only place. So it's here, he doesn't directly say it, but he says it in a roundabout way as a part of the word aradita, which means to worship. So Radharani's gopis are saying, certainly, they're basically saying, now stop complaining, because certainly this particular gopi has perfectly worshipped the all-powerful personality of Godhead Govinda, since he was so pleased with her that he abandoned the rest of us and brought her to a secluded place. So they're saying, well, if Krishna left all of us and went off with Radharani alone, there's a reason for that. It's because obviously Radharani is the best gopi, and she knows how to please Krishna better than anybody. And so she deserves to be alone with him. So yeah, Shukadeva Goswami doesn't want to say Radharani's name. And you'll notice he doesn't say, even with the speak of Radharani's name, he doesn't say even the names of the gopis, because Shukadeva Goswami he's a servant of Radharani and the gopis. And if he would say any of their names, he would not be able to finish the Bhagavatam. He would just become stunned in ecstasy. But here it just slips out by his mercy, almost like unwittingly. He says it in relation to Radharani. So the point here is that anaya radito, that it's not by coincidence that Radharani's name is said in this context, because the point is that Radha means one who satisfies Krishna by her worship. So Radharani is just all about that. She's just all about satisfying Krishna by her worship. Okay. So then they keep going. They keep tracing out the footprints. They glorify the dust of Krishna's lotus feet. And then Chandravali's friends speak again in texts 31 to 33, or actually 30 to 33. They say, these footprints of that special gopi greatly disturb us. Of all the gopis, she alone was taken away to a secluded place where she is enjoying the lips of Krishna. Look, we can't see her footprints over here. It's obvious that the grass and sprouts were hurting the tender soles of her feet, and so the lover lifted up his beloved. They're like accusing her of just like blaming it as if it's all her fault. And that now it's even worse because now, she's engaging Krishna in her service by making him carry her. They think that's terrible. And now they're also going to criticize Krishna. Please observe, my dear gopis, how in this place lusty Krishna's footprints are pressed even. So now they're thinking Radharani is lusty and she wanted to enjoy Krishna all to herself, and that Krishna they're also calling him lusty. Carrying the weight of his beloved must have been difficult for him. Over here, that intelligent boy must have put her down to gather some flowers. So they're really, they're kind of really annoyed. Just see how in this place, dear Krishna collected flowers for his beloved. Here he has left the impression of only the front part of his feet because he was standing on his toes to reach the flower. So they're really analyzing. They're like doing the science of footprint interpretation here. Certainly Krishna sat down here. So now they see a place where there's like, the marks of someone sitting there on the ground. Certainly Krishna sat down here with his girlfriend to arrange her hair. That lusty boy must have made a crown for that lusty girl out of the flowers he had collected. So here they call Kamina. Kamina means of the lusty girl, and Kamina means the lusty boy. They're being pretty accusatory here. And they're pointing out this faults. Yeah, but it's all in their imagination. They're just imagining that she's very proud and that he's whatever, just thinks of his own pleasure, and that's why he doesn't care about them. He just ditched them. So then Shukadeva Goswami is going to remind us that this is not the fact, actually, not at all. He's reminding us that Krishna is Atmarama. He keeps saying all this. So Lord Krishna enjoyed with that gopi, although he enjoys only within, being self-satisfied and complete in himself. Thus, by contrast, he showed the wretchedness of ordinary lusty men and hard-hearted women. So Shukadeva Goswami is saying that actually it's the opposite. Although Chandravali's gopis are accusing both of them of being lusty, that when we actually look at Krishna's dealings with Radharani, we can see that it's a complete contrast to the wretchedness of the dealings between ordinary lustful men and women. And why is that? Because Krishna is Atmarama. He's self-satisfied, and he is also akanditaha. That word is used here in text 34, which means he's never incomplete. He's not needy. He doesn't need anyone to satisfy his desires. He's perfectly capable of fulfilling all his desires himself. Not only that, but he can satisfy the desires of everyone. So this relationship between Radha and Krishna shows us what real love is. That love means to try to satisfy one's beloved. And also that Krishna and all the gopis have spiritual bodies, and therefore liberated souls can relish those pastimes, because Shukadeva Goswami himself is a liberated soul. And the fact that he's relishing this and he keeps defending Krishna, he's describing it, and then he's intermittently explaining this is transcendental, this is all spiritual, this is nothing to do with mundane lust. Means that this is all it's not mundane at all, but that Krishna in his conjugal pastimes, he's just receiving the offerings of the gopis who want to relate to them in that way. Just like when we were talking about the Krishna stealing the gopis' clothes, the only reason he steals the gopis' clothes is because they wanted him as their husband and they didn't want their parents to know about it. So he had to orchestrate a kind of marriage which would achieve both of those goals. And the solution was that he's going to have to see them naked. And so he steals their clothes. But his motivation is selfless. It's just to fulfill their desire. So Krishna just wants to fulfill the gopis' desires. And the gopis also, as I was explaining before, they just want to fulfill Krishna's desire to enjoy in the conjugal relationship, in the Madhurya Ras. And then the other thing is that, so Krishna's pastimes with the gopis are not mundane, and they're also not imagined. It's actually, they're real, and they have real effects on us. So that by hearing about Radha and Krishna, we actually get free from our own lusty desires. We get free from sex desire. So it must be pure. Radha and Krishna's pastimes must be pure because they purify us. They must be free from lust because they free us from lust. And so this is the pure thing, you know, this is the original romance in its pure state. And it's the sort, what exists here in the material world is just a reflection. It's a perverted reflection. So the reflection, just like, you know, everything in there's a reflection, like here's the tree and here's it down here. So everything is the opposite. The leaves are up here and they're down here. The root is here and it's here. So everything is the opposite. So whereas Krishna's pastimes are pure, its conjugal rasa is pure, our, you know, romantic dealings are impure. Where Krishna's are bring happiness, ours end up bringing misery. Or like in the purport, it says that at the end, romance in this world leads to crushing disappointment. That's what it says in the purport. Crushing disappointment, which is either the result of a change of heart in one of the so-called lovers, or death, which forces them apart. And then akanditaha means not incomplete. So not incomplete because Krishna's internal potencies are within himself. That's what Shukadeva is saying, that Krishna enjoyed with that gopi, although he enjoys only within. So all the gopis, Radharani, and everything are all within himself. You could compare it to like sugarcane juice, that if you have a thing of sugarcane juice and then you boil it down and concentrate it into gur, into jaggery, and then keep concentrating it, boiling it and concentrating it further, then it becomes sugar crystals. So the sugar crystals are actually there within the sugarcane juice. It's not different. So you could say that Krishna is like the source of love, and Radha is the most concentrated form of that love. But it all comes from Krishna. It's inspired by Krishna. It rests in Krishna. It is Krishna. And it's Krishna's Ladini Shakti. So we have to keep reminding, as we go through these pastimes, we have to just keep reminding ourselves of what we're talking about here. So where are we? Text 35 and 36. As the gopis wandered about, their minds completely bewildered, they pointed out various signs of Krishna's pastimes. The particular gopi whom Krishna had led into the secluded forest when he had abandoned all the other young girls began to think herself the best of women. My beloved has rejected all the other gopis, she thought, even though they are driven by Cupid himself. He has chosen to reciprocate with me alone. So now it looks like even Radharani is getting proud. She's thinking, oh, he's left all the other girls and he's only with me. But actually the acharyas comment differently. They say that, yeah, and it looks like Radha's ecstasy is diminished by her pride. Let's just read the next verse first. As the two lovers, so they're thinking that she's becoming proud. The other gopis who are searching for her, especially Chandravali's friends, they're thinking that Radharani must have become proud, like they did. And then they're imagining that as the two lovers passed through one part of the Vrindavan forest, this special gopi began feeling proud of herself, and she told Lord Keshava, I cannot walk any further. Please carry me wherever you want to go. This is what they're thinking. And that Krishna replied, yes, just climb on my shoulder. But as soon as he said this, he disappeared. And then his consort was morose. And that she cried out, oh, master, my lover, oh, dearmost, where are you? Where are you? Please, oh, mighty armed, oh, friend, show yourself to me, your poor servant. So this is all what they're speculating. They're speculating based on the footprints and the marks on the ground and their own imagination. They're conjecturing. And they're like, you know, like we imagine other people's responses according to the way we would respond. So because they became proud, they're thinking Radharani became proud. And because Krishna left them, they're assuming that Krishna left her. And because they tend to make demands on Krishna, they're thinking that Radharani also demanded, oh, please carry me. This is too difficult to walk through, and like that. And that after she was just crying out for him in desperation, the way they're crying out in desperation. So it's all kind of like we tend to see others through the lens of our own ego. So it's kind of what Chandravali's, it's actually Chandravali's gopis are doing. But the acharyas say that that's not actually it. But actually Radha is, out of compassion for her friends, she's thinking that, gosh, Krishna has left all the other gopis to be alone with me. Those other gopis must be very sad. They must be very distressed because they were with Krishna a second ago and now they're not. And they're suffering from being abandoned. So when Radharani thought like this, her ecstatic mood diminished. And she decided to act in such a way that would kind of distance Krishna from her. So then she started making demands like, like, please do my hair like this, please carry me. And then, so Krishna does that, but then understanding Radharani's desire, then he disappears. So yeah, Radharani's feeling compassion for her friends, and she just feels bad, that she feels kind of guilty that she's alone with Krishna and they're all just heartbroken. And so she's like, okay, Krishna, if this is how it is, then I don't want it like this. So then you can just leave me too, and then we can all be friends again. Because she was also feeling that Chandravali's gopis were envying her, and it wasn't good for them to feel that towards her. So she thought, okay, let's put an end to all these hard feelings and all this distress. If Krishna leaves me and we're all left alone, then at least we'll be united and we'll be friends and we'll be happy. So then, understanding Radharani's desire, then Krishna disappears. Okay. And then text 40, Shukadeva Goswami says, while continuing to search out Krishna's path, the gopis discovered their unhappy friend close by. She was bewildered by separation from her lover. So even though she wanted that, but still, she loves Krishna, so she's not happy that Krishna is not there. She told them how Madhava had given her much respect, but how she then suffered dishonor because of her misbehavior. The gopis were extremely amazed to hear this. So now they all become very sympathetic towards Radharani, and they think, gosh, it was worse what he did to Radharani, because when he left us, at least we had each other, but he just left her alone in the dark forest at night, full of animals, and she's so delicate and gentle, and just like all this feminine qualities, like how could she fend for herself here against the wild animals of the forest? And so they feel they're immediately feel compassion for her and love for her. And then they all start to look for Krishna. So that's what it says. In search of Krishna, the gopis then entered the depths of the forest as far as the light of the moon shone. But when they found themselves engulfed in darkness, they decided to turn back. They went into very, very deep areas of the forest that was so dense that even the light of the moon couldn't penetrate. It was like really dense forest. And then they got worried, and they thought that Krishna wouldn't have come this way. And even if he did, we're not going to be able to see his footprints. So there's no use looking here. Their minds absorbed in thoughts of him, they conversed about him, acted out his pastimes, and felt themselves filled with his presence. They completely forgot about their homes as they loudly sang the glories of Krishna's transcendental qualities. So it was amazing that Krishna left them. They never once thought, oh, now Krishna's gone, we may as well just go home. They never thought that. They're just so determined that we're going to find Krishna. We're just going to keep talking about Krishna and doing Krishna's pastimes and singing Krishna's glories, because that's all we have. If he's with us, great. If he's not, we just have to make him present by singing about him. So that's the situation of devotees in the material world, that we just need to we're not with Krishna right now, but we can try to invoke his presence by hearing his pastimes, by acting out his pastimes, by remembering his qualities, by singing his names and glories. And that way we can have some solace in this dark, dense, dark world where barely the light of the sun and moon penetrate. So then that way, singing and acting out his pastimes and walking along, the gopis again came to the bank of the Kalindi, the Yamuna, meditating on Krishna and eagerly hoping he would come. They sat down together to sing of him. So yeah, they're singing, they're doing kirtan, and they're fervently praying that Krishna comes back to him. And so the next chapter, oh my God, it's getting late. The next chapter is the Gopi Gita, the songs of separation. So I don't know, should we do this later or should we have 2 more chapters tomorrow? No, we're going to finish 3 chapters tomorrow. So what I'll do is maybe I'll just read through these verses and not comment very much because these verses are very, there's a lot that could be said and there's no way we're going to say everything. So I'm going to read these.
How about Priya?
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Okay, you can go.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank you
for
so
staying
much.
this long. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
this was wonderful.
So this is chapter 31. It's called the Gopis' Songs of Separation. The Gopi said, "O beloved, your birth in the land of Raj has made it exceedingly glorious, and thus Indira, the goddess of fortune, always resides here. It is only for your sake that we, your devoted servants, maintain our lives. We have been searching everywhere for you, so please show yourself to us. O Lord of love, in beauty, your glance excels the whorl of the finest, most perfectly formed lotus within the autumn pond. O bestower of benedictions, you are killing the maidservants who have given themselves to you freely, without any price. Isn't this murder? Like you're killing us. We became your maidservants and just voluntarily, you don't even have to pay us. And you just, you're murdering us. O greatest of personalities, you have repeatedly saved us from all kinds of danger, from poisoned water, from the terrible man-eater Aga, from the great rains, from the wind demon, from the fiery thunderbolt of Indra, from the bull demon, and from the son of Maya Danava. So they're saying that us, they're meaning the Brajvasis. So they saved them from by making Kaliya go away, they were saved from the poisoned water of the Yamuna. Then Krishna killed Agasura. Then he protected them by lifting Govardhan hill and saved them from the rains. Then he killed the Trinavarta and saved them from the whirlwind demon. And then Indra's thunderbolt, when he was throwing all those thunderbolts, he protected them. And then from all these demons. So they're kind of like, you've saved us so many times in the past. Please save us now. This is actually the worst demon. This is the worst attack. We're suffering more than ever right now because of separation from you. And Gargamuni said that you would relieve the Brajavasis from all distresses. So you have to do it. You have to relieve us. You have to fulfill the words of that great Brahmin. Says, now they're getting philosophical. You are not actually the son of the Gopi Yashoda, O friend, but rather the indwelling witness in the hearts of all embodied souls. Because Lord Brahma prayed for you to come and protect the universe, you have now appeared in the Satvata dynasty. Let me see what the notes are for this, because there must be something here. So does this mean that the gopis know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The answer is no. But they heard these things from Gargamuni, and they also heard from Purnamasi. Purnamasi is like the grandmother of Vrindavan. And so they're saying this is kind of accusatory when they say that you can't be the son of Mother Yashoda, because Mother Yashoda is so loving. Mother Yashoda is so soft-hearted, but you're nothing like her. How could you be her son? It said that the son takes on the qualities of the mother. But here you are witnessing our suffering and you're not taking care of us, even though you're perfectly competent to take care of us because you protected the universe, but you're not protecting us. So now the gopis are going to start to make their requests. O best of the Vrishnis, your lotus-like hand, which holds the hand of the goddess of fortune, grants fearlessness to those who approach your feet out of fear of material existence. O lover, please place that wish-fulfilling hand, that wish-fulfilling lotus hand on our heads. O you who destroy the suffering of Raj's people, O hero of all women, your smile shatters the false pride of your devotees. Please, dear friend, accept us as your maidservants and show us your beautiful lotus face. Your lotus feet destroy the past sins of all embodied souls who surrender to them. Those feet follow after the cows in the pastures and are the eternal abode of the goddess of fortune. Since you once put those feet on the hoods of the great serpent Kaliya, please place them on our breasts and tear away the lust in our hearts. O lotus-eyed one, your sweet voice and charming words, which attract the minds of the intelligent, are bewildering us more and more. O dear hero, please revive your maidservants with the nectar of your lips. So these are the requests. They're making this request that first of all, place your lotus hand on our heads. And then please show us your beautiful lotus-like face. And then please place your lotus feet on our breasts and tear away the lust in our hearts. And then finally, please revive us with the nectar of your lips. So the gopis, they're singing this, all these prayers they're saying with the purpose of just pouring out their hearts, pouring out their feelings to Krishna with the hope of attracting his attention, because they think that he must be nearby. He must be hiding just behind some bush somewhere and he can hear them. So he really wants them to, they're just expressing their desires, that Krishna is supposed to fulfill the desires of the devotees. So they want Krishna to come. And then they speak this very famous verse, which I'll say the Sanskrit of. Tava katamritam tapta jivanam kavibir iditam kalmasapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatatam Bhuvigrinantiye Bhuridhajana. The nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul of those suffering in this material world. These narrations, transmitted by learned sages, eradicate one's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune upon whoever hears them. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Certainly, those who spread the message of Godhead are most munificent. So here they're saying, because this is their experience, you know, in their separation from Krishna, the only thing that's keeping them alive at this moment, the only thing that's keeping them from going completely insane is just drinking the nectar of Krishna's words and the descriptions of his activities. He says, this is the life and soul, not just of us who are suffering in your separation, but of all those who are suffering in the material world. And therefore, learned sages, they transmit, they speak about your pastimes, they speak about your qualities, because these narrations eradicate one's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune. And they say that these people, devotees who broadcast these narrations all over the world, are the most munificent. So they're glorifying those, the preachers of Krishna consciousness, the speakers of Krishna's pastimes, who want to share this knowledge of Krishna and his intimate pastimes with associates, with others, because they're feeling this is the only thing that's giving solace, and they're grateful for each other's association, because they're with each other, they're able to remind each other of Krishna, they're able to act out Krishna's pastimes, they're able to sing Krishna's names together. So the showing how the association of devotees is so important, that we can share this we can churn this nectar together, and in this way we can get comfort, we can find a refuge or a shelter within this material world, a space where we can feel the presence of Krishna. And that those people who create this space, who fill this space with Krishna, with Krishna's pastimes and Krishna's names, are the most munificent people on the planet. So it's a glorification of these great devotees who share Krishna consciousness. They say, your smiles, your sweet loving glances, the intimate pastimes and confidential talks we enjoyed with you, all these are auspicious to meditate, and they touch our hearts. But at the same time, O deceiver, they very much agitate our minds. So this is the contention of a devotee's life. That the more we hear about Krishna, the more our hearts are warmed by hearing of Krishna, but at the same time, the more our hearts are just devastated by separation. So the one hand, it's like you want to remember Krishna because you're happy remembering Krishna, but at the same time, when you remember Krishna, you feel separation from Krishna, and it's heart-wrenching. So it simultaneously touches the heart and wrenches the heart. And that's what we were talking about, that the more we advance in Krishna consciousness, the more emotionally intense it becomes. But that's where the pleasure is, emotional intensity. That's why Krishna churns it. That's why he stirs it up. Text 11. Dear master, dear lover, when you leave the cowherd village to herd the cows, our minds are disturbed with the thought that your feet, more beautiful than a lotus, will be pricked by the spiked husk of grain and the rough grass and plants. So all day when Krishna's out and about in the field, they're worrying. So this is a little bit of, like they have a little bit of a mixture of Vatsalya Ras, like in the Madhurya Ras, that they're concerned about his well-being, like Mother Yashoda is always worrying about Krishna when he's out there in the pasturing grounds. Yeah, so they're basically saying, it's not only today that you're making us miserable, but every day when you go out to the fields, we're just so disturbed. We're feeling separation from you. We're missing you. We're worrying about you. Your feet are meant to be touched by our soft hands. They're meant to be placed on our soft breasts. They're not meant to be pierced by sharp grass and thorns out there in the forest. So Jiva Goswami comments that when someone has a lover, it gives great joy, but at the same time, great suffering. So it's best to avoid material affection, but we can't give up loving someone. We have to have love in our lives. So then we should love Krishna and love the devotees. And then at least our suffering will yield eternal benefit. Because if we have a mundane relationship, that love will bring suffering, but that suffering will just be pain. It won't give us any benefit, except maybe it will teach us that not to have material relationships. But if we love Krishna and devotees, then it will bring both joy and suffering, and both of those will give us eternal benefit. So text 12. So the gopis are meditating on Krishna. They're meditating in samadhi. They're like in a trance-like state of absorption in Krishna, and they're describing him. So when we hear these meditations of the gopis, we should also try to visualize them in our minds and really like imprint them on our consciousness so that our memory of Krishna can awaken. So they describe that at the end of the day, you repeatedly show us your lotus face, covered with dark blue locks of hair and thickly powdered with dust. Thus, O hero, you arouse lusty desires in our minds. Your lotus feet, which are worshipped by Lord Brahma, fulfill the desires of all who bow down to them. They are the ornament of the earth. They give the highest satisfaction, and in times of danger, they are the appropriate object of meditation. O lover, O destroyer of anxiety, please put those lotus feet on our breasts. So this is yeah. So there are many things, about Krishna consciousness that are just inconceivable to us. It's a very transcendental science, but we can just get a hint of these feelings. And, Srila Prabhupada says that we need to go on hearing. We need to just go on hearing these pastimes, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam for a long time, because Krishna Katha acts in different phases on us. So, first it removes the lower modes. It frees us from the influence of the lower modes, and it elevates us to the mode of goodness. And then it liberates us totally from all the three modes. So then we transcend even goodness. And then it gives us realization of Bhagavat Tattva, or the truth, the science of God. And then it gives us a transcendental vision of the Lord. So here the gopis are describing. And so we just have to keep studying and trying to understand, even though we can't understand, just keep trying to understand, just like we chant our rounds every day. And we're not feeling that the name is Krishna, but we're trying to feel, we're not getting a taste, but we're trying to chant. So it's like this. In the beginning, we just have to just keep on trying, because it's all there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. All these emotions, all this experience, this revelation of Krishna can be ours through hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. But at the present, it's sealed because of our, we're not ready for it. But we can access this great treasure of Krishna when we're ready. Like Prabhupada said, that we can actually see Krishna in the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So first we need to just try to open our hearts to it and pray for Krishna to reveal himself. So the gopis continue. "O hero, kindly distribute to us the nectar of your lips, which enhances conjugal pleasure and vanquishes grief. That nectar is thoroughly relished by your vibrating flute, which makes people forget any other attachments." So they're saying that Krishna, we're suffering from this disease of romantic desire for you. And you incarnated as Dhanvantari, the doctor, the divine Ayurvedic physician. So you're the best of physicians. So please give us the medicine. And what is that medicine? It's the nectar from his lips. And he says, anyways, you give it freely to the flute. You're always touching the flute with your lips. So that flute is just a bamboo. What about us? Anyways, that bamboo, the flute is male. The flute is male gender. What are you doing, wasting the nectar of your lips on that hollow bamboo stick? So Krishna would say, but the diet of people in this world is a bad one, of attachment to wealth, followers, family. The particular medicine that you've requested should not be given to those who have a bad diet. And then the gopis say, but this medicine makes one forget all other attachments. It's like an herbal drug that counteracts bad dietary habits. So just give it to us. Don't be a miser. Don't worry about these things. It'll just counteract all those things. Like if a medicine, sometimes you're sick, you have to have medicine and also diet, special diet. But if you have a very strong medicine, it doesn't matter what you eat, it's still going to cure you. That's what the gopis are saying. That this nectar of your lips is so potent that it doesn't matter. Even if people are attached to material things, it doesn't matter. Of course, the gopis weren't, but they're thinking about us. Even if we're material attached, even if we have an artist, still when this pastimes of Krishna goes into the heart, when the vibration of Krishna's flute, when the sound of Krishna's flute goes into the heart, it's going to act, even if we have attachments. So even if we have a bad diet of attachments, this medicine is going to work. They say when you go off to the forest during the day, a tiny fraction of a second becomes like a millennium for us because we cannot see you. And even when we can eagerly look upon your beautiful face, so lovely with its adornment of curly locks, our pleasure is hindered by our eyelids, which were fashioned by the foolish creator. So they're criticizing Lord Brahma for making eyes that have eyelids that have to blink, because the second when they blink, they can't see Krishna. I'll finish quick because I have a meeting at 1. Oh, good. Just a few more verses. Dear Achyuta, you know very well why we've come here. Who but a cheater like you would abandon young women who come to see him in the middle of the night, enchanted by the loud song of his flute? Just to see you, we have completely rejected our husbands, children, ancestors, brothers, and relatives. Our minds are repeatedly bewildered as we think of the intimate conversations we had with you in secret. Feel the rise of lust in our hearts and remember your smiling face, your loving glances, and your broad chest, the resting place of the goddess of fortune. Thus we experience the most severe hankering for you. Yeah, now it's even worse, because before, when Krishna would go to the pasturing grounds, they would feel separation, but they hadn't enjoyed with Krishna yet. They had only, desired, they had only, seen him and exchanged glances and smiles. That's it. But now they had just embraced him. They were dancing with him. They were kissing him. They were having water pastimes with him. They were, feeling his, chest against them and his arms around them and like that. And So now that now it's like a million times worse, and they're remembering those intimate dealings that they just shared there on the bank of the Yamuna, and they're like, our hankering now is most severe. So they say, "Oh beloved, your all auspicious appearance vanquishes the distress of those living in Rajas forests. Our minds long for your association. Please give to us just a bit of that medicine which counteracts the disease in your devotees' hearts." And then the last verse is, "Oh dearly beloved, your lotus feet are so soft that we place them gently on our breasts, fearing that your feet will be hurt. Our life rests only in you. Our minds, therefore, are filled with anxiety that your tender feet might be wounded by pebbles as you roam about on the forest path." So in this way, they are expressing their feelings to Krishna and their love for Krishna and their desire for Krishna's association. And yeah, it's a really nice explanation of the mood of the gopis here in this last verse 19, because their meditation is only on Krishna's lotus feet. Here they're fixed. And why? Because they're fixed in their position as his servants. They just want to serve his lotus feet by relieving their pain, by relieving his pain. They don't have any tinge of enjoying spirit or Purusha Bhav, that I'm the master, that I'm whatever, but they're just happy by Krishna's pleasure. And Krishna is so precious to them that even though he's put them in this suffering situation, they can't bear the thought that he might be suffering in any way. And they just want to deal with him in a very sweet and delicate way for his pleasure. So we shall end here. It's been almost 2 hours, but there was a lot to cover. And tomorrow we'll have another 2 chapters and we'll finish the Rasa Leela in those 2 chapters. So thank you all for staying so long. And I have to get going because I have a meeting now. But Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.